Hey everyone, in the last video we talked about Lewis structures and the octet rule. In this video we're going to use Lewis structures to review formal charges. The basic definition of formal charge is the number of valence electrons minus the number of bonds minus the number of unpaired electrons. I like to remember this rule as valence electrons minus lines minus dots. Using this rule, let's find the formal charge of the nitrogen atom in ammonia, NH3. Nitrogen has 5 valence electrons, has 3 bonds or lines, and 2 unpaired electrons or dots. 5 minus 3 minus 2 equals 0. Therefore, the formal charge of the central nitrogen atom is 0. Now let's try the same for the ammonium ion, NH4. Nitrogen has 5 valence electrons, but this time it has 4 bonds and no unpaired electrons. 5 minus 4 equals 1. Therefore, the formal charge of the central nitrogen atom is plus 1. What just happened? Let's remember our HONC mnemonic. We said the nitrogen likes to form 3 bonds. When nitrogen has 3 bonds and subsequently 1 lone pair, it has a formal charge of 0. When nitrogen has 4 bonds or 1 more than it likes, the formal charge is plus 1. This is a pattern we can use for both nitrogen and oxygen. Let's use this mnemonic to find out the formal charge of each of the oxygen atoms in this structure. The oxygen has 6 valence electrons. The upper oxygen atom has 2 bonds and 4 unpaired electrons. 6 minus 2 minus 4 equals 0. So the upper oxygen atom has a formal charge of 0. The lower oxygen has only 1 bond and 6 unpaired electrons. 6 minus 1 minus 6 equals negative 1. The lower oxygen atom has a formal charge of negative 1. Let's think about this again. When oxygen has the same number of bonds as what it likes, it has a formal charge of 0. However, when oxygen has 1 less bond than what it likes, it has a formal charge of negative 1. This shows us a pattern we can use remembering our HONC mnemonic. For oxygen and nitrogen, 1 less bond than what they prefer results in a formal charge of negative 1. But 1 more bond than what they prefer results in a formal charge of plus 1. But what happens to hydrogen, halogens, and carbon? Well, both hydrogens and halogens will almost always appear in a compound. They almost never have more than 1 bond and can exist with a negative charge only as a monoatomic ion. Carbon, on the other hand, is a different story. Carbon cannot have 5 bonds because then the octet rule is violated. However, it can have 3 bonds. Carbon with 3 bonds and without a lone pair has a formal charge of plus 1. But carbon with 3 bonds and a lone pair has a formal charge of negative 1. Another idea I need to mention is that the sum of all formal charges in a molecule must equal the net charge of the molecule. If you have multiple formal charges and know the overall charge, they must match up. We just reviewed formal charges and how to get them quickly using our HONC mnemonic. Next, we'll move on to our first concept in this course, bond line structures.